Hey everybody, you're here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today back in Overwatch's Storm Rising event going for the Hurricane achievement. This one is going to be available to be done whenever the mission is going to be available in the arcade. It is to beat it on story mode on legendary difficulty. So this one's going to be quite the challenge, so hopefully you have a pretty good team for this. You are going to be limited to the story roster, so that's going to be your choice of Tracer, Genji, Winston, or Mercy. Get into the game. We're going to start out in the garage. Someone's going to have to pull the door open, and then we're going to get out onto the street. This one is going to be fairly challenging since you don't really have a character that has a very high damage output, so you're going to have to take things nice and slow and steady. Also, the team is going to be pretty limited on health, so you're going to have to rely on the Mercy player healing everyone constantly. The Winston player is going to have a shield to work with, although it's not super useful as some of the other shield characters. So try your best to take advantage of the shield. It is going to be rather small, but it is going to be a circle, so you can kind of hunker down in it, but it isn't going to last as long as a Reinhardt or Narissa shield, unfortunately. So you're going to have to make sure you take things super duper slowly. Hopefully you should manage to clear out the initial enemies on the street, and then once you get past the corner right here, you're going to have the first dropship come in. There's not going to be any major strategy, unfortunately, so hopefully everyone just does the best to make the most out of their abilities. Unfortunately, this team isn't going to have the greatest synergy together, but try your best to stick it out.
You needed a doctor?
Very rough.
Ever get that? Sojo, does it seem like Maximilian had more muscle with him than we were expecting?
Ever since this new Doomfist appeared on the scene, he's been taking a more active hand.
Alright, once you clear out the initial street enemies, you're going to round this corner right here. You're going to get a special in the form of a sniper to spawn. Hopefully you are playing with a really competent Genji player, as you are going to need to have him deflect the sniper's shot back at her, because everyone else is also going to be very bad at range. So Genji's going to be the only real pragmatic character to deal with her, since everyone else is going to be more of a close range fighter. So the Genji player should use his deflect to try to hit her with her own bullet, and then he's just going to stand back and then pop her from behind the safety of these barricades right here with his ninja stars. You should be able to have a pretty good vantage point on that sniper who's going to be in the window above the distillery entrance. Then hopefully you manage to take care of her before the enforcers drop in, and then once they do, just make sure you have everyone pull back. Winston's going to pop his shield at the street corner, and then everyone's just going to back up and fire, and then hopefully you can deal with the enforcers before they all gang up on you. And then we're just going to slowly clear out the front of the distillery.
You needed a doctor?
This will protect us.
We're outside the distillery, Captain.
Clear out the building and find Max. I'm opening the doors now. Stay on your toes.
Alright, that should do it for the first area. We're going to make our journey into the distillery. Make sure you head on inside. Watch out for the enemies on the left right here. Then we're going to take a hard right and then wrap around this corner. Make sure you take out the big bunch of enemies right over here. And then we're just going to slowly work on these guys. Make sure you take out everyone on the factory floor. Then you're going to have some guys right there up in the window behind the overhanging office. But make sure you just take them all out.
I'm taking care of you, Genji.
So once we do our initial sweep of the distillery, the game is going to throw a bunch of enemies in waves at us, so we're going to have to find a place to hold up. The best place to hold up is going to be this back staircase right here. So everyone's going to pile in, and then everyone's going to head up here into the storage room. This is going to be the best place in the whole distillery to hold out, as you're going to have a window that's going to give you a nice vantage point into the factory. You're also going to have the staircase, which is going to be the only way in and the only way out for the enemies, so make sure you do take advantage of that bottleneck the best you can, and then just try to hold your position up here. So it's going to be pretty basic defense, so make sure you do take advantage of our vantage point and our bottleneck, and we should be able to get through this a-okay. Again, the team build isn't going to be very good, so make sure you do mind the enemies pressing on the staircase. Make sure you do take advantage of your ultimates and all that stuff. You're also going to get the second type of special that's going to spawn at the beginning, which is going to be an assassin. So if it does jump and pounce on someone, make sure you quickly have someone melee her off. That way she doesn't end up killing whoever she pounces on. And then make sure you quickly take her out while she's stunned, and that should deal with her. The storage room is also going to be a really good spot as everyone's going to stick together, and that should help out with any assassin drops. Also, Winston's shield is going to do a pretty good job of covering the whole storage room, both the window and the bottleneck, so you should be able to hold your position just fine up here.
This will protect us.
You needed a doctor?
What do you think will happen if we can't get Max?
They've been threatening to reassign the entire operation.
Morrison and Race have been arguing about it quite a bit lately.
What about the strike team?
Might be the end of the line for us, too.
Very
You look
hot.
like you needed help. They're dropping from the ceiling. I'm taking care of you. They're all over me.
Heroes never die.
Here comes more of them. I'm taking care of you, Genji.
Very hot.
You needed a doctor?
So about halfway through this segment, you're going to get the next few specials in the form of a pair of snipers. Thankfully, this vantage point is also going to be a really good spot to deal with snipers, as you're going to have a view of the entire factory floor from the window. So a good Genji player can pop into the window, use his deflect to try to clip the sniper from wherever they're firing at, and then of course Genji is going to have the best range in order to try to shoot them from far away. So dealing with the snipers shouldn't be too bad, since we should be able to see wherever they are coming from.
Heilstrahl aktiviert. Do you think Maximilian will talk?
He just deals with the money. Intelligence thinks he'll be motivated to negotiate.
Yeah, what does that mean?
He'll talk.
Let me get you patched up. There's a heavy assault unit here.
Then finally, to round out this segment, the game is going to throw a heavy at us. What we're going to do is you want to make sure you try to pull the heavy into this room, so everyone's going to stay away from the window, and they're going to try to pull him up the stairs. That whole time he's trying to climb the stairs, everyone's just going to unload on him the best they can, and then once he breaches the room, everyone's going to dip out of the window, and then everyone's going to take a hard left into this hallway right here. Once everyone rendezvous at the hallway, you want to make sure you have 2 people at the door you just came through, and then 1 person is going to go to the far door on the opposite end of this hallway. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure you have both parties keep an eye out for the heavy, and they are basically going to call out for what door the heavy is going to be following everyone through. Whatever door that is, you want to make sure the team gets through the opposite door, and then everyone's going to book it to the overhanging office. So across the factory floor, up the staircase, into the office. Then Winston is going to pop his shield down, and then everyone's going to fire at the heavy as he's crossing the floor through this window. So make sure everyone tries to land as much damage as they can in on him. He is most likely going to follow taking the same staircase we did, so we're going to dip into this back hallway. We are going to have another window right here to work with, so everyone can fire in on him as he's making his journey up the staircase. Everyone can also shoot in on him as he's getting into the office through the window, so make sure you try to take advantage of trying to land as much damage as you can. Now, once you lose the office, you can take the hallway downstairs back down to the factory floor. Of course, you are going to have to adjust the loop depending on where the heavy is going to go. So if the heavy happens to be moving on to the bottom of that staircase, everyone can just reverse the loop and then just cut back through the office. Make sure you do mind the normal enemies here. Just like the strategy we use for the Retribution event, there's always going to be a reset point for these loops, and the reset point for this particular loop is going to be the storage room. So everyone's going to head back up to the staircase, and then everyone's going to hang out here. Again, the staircase is going to be the one way in, one way out for the heavy going into the storage room, and we always have a reset point by jumping out of the window since the heavy can't jump. So everyone's going to try their best to hold the staircase and land as much damage as they can in on the heavy. Then when he gets too close for comfort, everyone out the window, and then to the back hallway we go. Then split up the group, make sure one person on the far door, two people on the close door. Keep an eye out for which door the heavy is going to follow everyone through, and then make sure you go through the opposite, and then just make sure everyone gets up to the overhanging office as their next safe spot. Now, do keep in mind the team build isn't going to have the best damage output, so you are going to have to run this loop several times in order to finally whittle the heavy down. Thankfully, there is no time limit on this mission, so you should be able to take your sweet time and then slowly chip him out running this loop. Make sure you be very careful, though, and make sure you are also dealing with the normal enemies whenever you are trying to transition between safe spots, as you don't want them piling up or giving you a sneak attack whenever you are trying to make the trip across. If someone does end up going down, make sure you don't panic, as the team can always loop back to them as long as they die somewhere on the loop, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal breaker. So make sure you try to keep that in mind. Make sure you don't rush back to someone's rescue right away. Make sure you always try to take the long loop back, and then you should be able to pick them back up along the way. Now, if the death timer is creeping up on you because you are pinned in a really bad spot, you can have the Mercy player use her ultimate and her insta-revive. She can cut across the factory floor because she can fly, and then she can quickly insta-revive whoever went down, and that way you can get back to the loop as soon as possible. So try to be a little careful so you don't have to do this, but it is going to be a nice failsafe. And again, if you ever need to reset the loop, everyone is going to head back the safest way they can to the storage room, and we can always reset the loop this way. So that's the basic rundown of the loop and how it's going to work. You do want to make sure you be careful whenever doing this, though. Watch out for whenever the heavy does dash. If you can get him to dash into the wall, he's going to get stunned, which is going to give you a big opportunity to try to land a ton of damage in on him. But do keep in mind, if you end up taking the bad side of that dash, that is going to lead to a lot of problems, which is probably going to down whoever he touches. So make sure you don't get too greedy, and just make sure you do the slow and steady route, slowly looping him around and then slowly chipping him out. But you should be able to get him eventually, but this is going to take quite a bit of patience, as again, you don't have a ton of great damage dealers on this team.
Let me get you patched up.
I'm taking care. Let's get you back out there. I've got to say something. I'm taking care of the engine. I could use some assistance.
Let me get you patched up.
Heilstrahl aktiviert.
You needed a doctor?
Let
Alright, so again, patience is going to be everything when it comes to this looping strategy, and eventually the loop is going to end up lasting so long all of the normal enemies are going to be cleared out, and then when you finally get to that point, you can turn all of your attention on to the heavy, thankfully. You are still going to have to stick to the loop, as the heavy is going to pack quite a bit of a punch, obviously, if you haven't already figured that out at this point, but just keep up at it, and then hopefully you should be able to get him. Without all of the normal enemies floating around, you should be free to try to bait him into dashing into a wall, and that should stun him, allowing you to land massive damage, and then hopefully you can use that to take him out way quicker. And then once he finally goes down, you should clear the distillery, and then everyone can be free to move on to the next thing, which is going to be to meet up at the truck on the backside of the factory. So everyone's going to meet up here, make sure you get everyone's health back up and all that stuff, and then we're going to move on to the Payload Escort.
There's a truck with explosives just lying around.
Sure is.
Well then, proceed.
Why is Max showing himself now? He ran a tight ship before, but now he's getting sloppy. Doesn't that seem strange?
You know how Doomfist has been shaking up the talent hierarchy? They've started to make some mistakes because of it.
Good for us then.
Not unless we can.
Thankfully, the payload isn't going to have a health bar, so we don't have to worry about defending it. We just need to escort it, so we can feel free to abandon it whenever we start to get overrun, which is what we're going to do as soon as we get out onto the streets and the enemies start dropping in. So make sure once that happens, everyone jumps off of it, and then everyone's going to pull back to this corner to try to bottleneck all of the enforcers in. You're going to get a ton more of enemies dropping in from these dropships, so again, just pull back. You can pull all the way back to the distillery if you need to, and you probably will, because there are going to be a ton of enemies. So just make sure you take advantage of this corner for cover, and just make sure you are popping enemies as they are rounding it, and then we should be able to hopefully clear them out a-okay. And then once you feel like it's safe to do so, just make sure you move back up, and then make sure you get that truck moving. But again, there's no rush because the truck cannot be damaged.
Damage amplified, right? Healing stream engaged. I need healing. Let's get you back out there.
Barrier activated.
Ich kümmere mich um dich.
Once you get the truck around this corner, you're going to get some specials to spawn in, so everyone's going to fall back. You definitely want to make sure you fall back to at least past this tower right here. You're going to be dealing with a sniper at first. Make sure you try to pull her out onto the street so you have an easier time of dealing with her. Thankfully, she is not going to jump past that tower, so you can kind of hunker back down around this corner and you should be totally safe. Once you finally have the sniper in a position that you want and the streets are going to be relatively clear, Winston's going to pop up his shield around the corner. The Genji player is going to enter the bubble, and then he's going to pick off the sniper in this nice big open area with his ninja stars. It should be super duper easy, as it is going to be a big open area and you have a clear shooting lane. The Mercy player can buff the Genji, and the Tracer can provide some cover fire, and then Winston's going to try their best to hold off any enemies who are coming this way. But once you finally take care of the sniper, it's time to move back up. We are going to get another special to drop in the form of an assassin. Once you notice her come on down, everyone's going to pull back to the distillery. It's best to deal with the assassin as far away from the normal enemies as possible. Everyone is going to have to go together, though. You always want to deal with an assassin clustered up in a big stack. That way, when she does jump on someone, someone could immediately punch her off, and then we can get to killing her while she is stunned.
Let's get you back into the fight. Let's get you back out there.
Once you finally finish dealing with that assassin, we're going to make our final push on the payload. So everyone back up to wherever we abandoned it at, and then everyone's just going to push it into the castle. Once you do, you're going to start another big crescendo of enemies. So everyone's going to immediately back out of the courtyard, back across the bridge, and then everyone's going to hold their spot right here, and then they're going to take out the initial enemies that pop out of the castle. Winston can throw his shield down. It's going to be great cover on the bridge, and everyone's going to fall back to the safety of the bridge and then take everyone out from far away.
Blow the door.
This Talon troops incoming! Damage output increased. Ah.
You should be at peak performance levels.
Dropship inbound!
You've got this.
You look like you needed help, Genji.
Barrier up.
Let's get you back out there.
Barrier
I'm taking care of it.
So if the team was smart and took out all of the enemies by pulling them out of the castle, once the two snipers drop in, you shouldn't be assassinated right away because you are going to be out here and they're going to try to aim through the castle gates. Make sure you try to pull them outside of the castle or to a place where you can easily shoot them. So make sure you try to work on that. The best place is going to be the left platform because you can shoot through that gap in the castle wall right here. So make sure you have the Genji player stand over here and then he can pop that sniper through that gap, and then make sure you try to bait the other sniper into another advantageous spot like that. As long as you stay on this side of the castle gate, on the far side of the bridge, you should be relatively safe from any sniper fire, so make sure you just take your time and pick both of them off one at a time from a super safe distance. Once you take care of that initial pair of snipers, another two are going to drop in, so you're going to have to deal with another two snipers. Again, make sure you try to pull them to an advantageous spot, and then just make sure you pick them off from far away, or use Genji's deflect to try to throw their bullets back at them. And then once you take out the third one, we're going to try to get the fourth one in place. So if you need to, make sure you just dip into the castle and then quickly dip back out, and then hopefully she should jump to a good spot. If she's going to be on the close wall of the castle, it's going to take a little finagling to try to get her in a spot where you want it to. Try to have the Genji player do this, as he is going to have the deflect to cover him, as everyone else is going to have a hard time dealing with the snipers when they are out in the open. But hopefully you can get her before she can get any of you, and then try not to have anyone die in the castle courtyard. Once all four of the castle courtyard snipers are dealt with, everyone is going to meet up on this side of the bridge to rendezvous. What's going to happen next is you're going to have the heavies drop in. This is going to be legendary difficulty, so you are dealing with two heavies this time for the finale. So everyone's going to group together, and together everyone's going to back up all the way to the distillery, and then we're going to try to thin out the enemies the best we can from this corner. Once everyone's ready to take up positions, everyone's going to head to the start of the loop, which is going to be the back staircase leading up to the storage room. Have everyone hold out here, and then you're going to fire at whatever heavy is going to be approaching the group. Your goal for this initial loop is to try to get the two heavies together and then keep them together the whole time. So everyone's going to fire at the heavy, and everyone's going to try to bait him into the corner right here. And as soon as he gets too close for comfort, everyone's going to go up the staircase into the storage room and then bail out through the window. And then everyone's going to take that hard left into the back hallway. So just like the last loop we did at the distillery, you want to make sure you have two people on this door that you just came out through, and then one person's going to go to the far door. Make sure everyone keeps an eye out for where the heavy is going to follow through, and make sure you take the opposite door out, and then everyone is going to try to rendezvous at the office. At this time, the second heavy should have just gone it to the distillery, so you're going to have to be a little careful when making that trip across the main floor. Once everyone's back at the office, hopefully in one piece, everyone is going to dip out of this door that had just opened up, which is going to take you back out onto the street instead of continuing the loop. So the reason we are doing this is we're basically expanding the loop to include a second reset point. And now with this second reset point, we should have more opportunities to try to group the two heavies together, which should make looping both of them way easier. So the way this loop expansion is going to work is basically we're going to take that staircase down, and then we're going to go through all of the back buildings back to the castle. Once we're in the castle courtyard, we're going to take the left staircase up, and there's going to be that gap in the front castle wall. And just like any other good reset point, the only way up for the heavy is going to be that staircase. And of course, we can always put some distance between us by dropping down the ledge right here. So just make sure you hold your spot here and then fire at the heavies. Hopefully they cluster up together the best they can. Make sure the team is keeping an eye out on both of their positions, and then once one is getting too close for comfort at the castle, you're going to want to dip out the front wall. If the second one is still out on the street, you can always drop down onto the dirt path and then take the cannon wall around back to the factory. So hopefully they should cluster up on the way back to the factory, and then we are going to hit up the initial reset point. So everyone's going to head back to that back staircase, and we're going to head inside to the storage room. Now, during this loop, the two heavies should definitely group up to one another since they both have to head through the distillery door to get to the back staircase. So everyone's going to hold their spots here. And basically the way this is going to work is you are going to stick to the original loop whenever the two heavies are together. And if they ever do split up, you are just going to expand the loop going back to the castle.
We lost one.
You needed a doctor?
One of our allies needs to be revived.
The battle continues. Heroes never die.
Tracer's down. Someone revive her.
You look like you needed help, Genji. I'm taking care of you. Ich kümmere mich um dich.
This will protect us.
Let's get you back out there.
I'm being attacked.
You needed a doctor? Where does it hurt? Healing stream engaged.
Very hot.
Let me get you patched up. You look like you needed help, Genji. I'm taking care of you. You've been down. Ich kümmere mich um dich. get you patched up.
Very up.
I'm taking care of you.
Barrier active.
Let's get you back out there. You look like you needed help, Genji. Oh. Let me get you patched up.
Behind you.
You needed a doctor? Let's get you back out there. Where does it hurt? You needed a doctor? You look like you needed help, Genji. Let me get you patched up. Let's get you back out there. Where does it hurt?
Very up.
Once you finally manage to take out the first heavy, things are going to get way easier since you can cut the loop back down to the original one, and then you can just use it to quickly take out the second heavy. Make sure you don't get too reckless here, especially if the heavy still has a significant amount of his health intact, since you were super focused on the first one. But you should be able to now take more risk, including trying to bait him into dashing into a wall, which is going to stun him, and then you can just unload on him that way, thankfully. Also, by now, since we have been keeping up the super loop for a really long time, most of the normal enemies should have been thinned out, so we should have no problem in trying to just focus on the single target. So just make sure you get back to the original loop, and then make sure you just use the same strategy, and this time you should be able to get rid of him super duper quickly.
Barrier activated.
Let me get you patched up.
This will protect us.
Healing stream engaged. Let's get you back out there.
Very up.
Damage boost engaged. I'm taking care of you.
This will protect us.
Let's get you back out there. Healing stream engaged. Let me get you touched up.
Very
You
up.
needed a doctor?
Once the second heavy finally goes down, make sure the Mercy player picks everyone back up real quick, and then we're just going to make it all the way back to the castle to arm the truck, which is going to give us the mission complete. So make sure everyone takes their time there. There might still be some stragglers out on the street. You definitely don't want to have someone sneak around the corner and give you a good killing, especially after all we've been through at this point. So everyone's just going to make it back there. Make sure everyone cleans up these stragglers the best they can. Someone's going to get to the truck to arm it. Make sure you set those explosives and then push the truck forward into the castle doors. And then once you finally get that off, you should get your mission complete and the achievement that goes along with it. There it is, 15 gamer score. And that's all there is to it.